Okay, so this is your bell work for Wednesday, September 28th. Uh, and what we want to know here is it says identify the numbered angles that are also 120 degrees. And so immediately I know that angle 4 is 120 degrees because it's vertical to 120 degrees. So this angle is 120. I know that angle 4 is congruent to angle 5 because it's alternate interior. Here's angle 4. Here's angle 5. So you see the letter Z. And so I know that angle also has to be 120. And then I know that angle 8 is vertical with angle 5. There's another X. And so I know that angle 8 also has to be 120 degrees. So the angles are 4, 5, and 8. So angle 4, angle 5, and angle 8. Okay, check your answers to your homework from last night. I'll stamp it when I get back tomorrow. If you didn't do your homework from last night, please don't just write down the answers. I mean, you have to show work on these as well, but we'll stamp it on Thursday. If you need to pause it here, you can. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. So let's look at our notes for today. Notes are real short, only 3 examples, and what we're looking at is parallel lines and parallelograms. Okay. And so in example number 2, starting with example number 2, so make sure you're on the same page with me here. So starting with example number 2, if the measure of angle 1 is 6x or 6y plus 5, angle 2 is 24, angle 3 is 95, and angle 4 is 5x minus 16. So let's go ahead and let's label that before we do anything else. And so we know that angle 1 is 6y plus 5, and we know that angle 2 is 24. We know that angle 3 is 95, and we know that angle 4 is 5x minus 16. Now what I want to do here is I want to look for one of my angle pairs. And so what I would recommend is let's do this set of parallel lines because it has one arrow. So I know that those 2 lines are parallel to each other. Let's draw the transversal, trace the transversal. And what I recognize is that that's a Z. And so angle 2 will be congruent to angle number 4 because they are alternate interior angles. And I know in geometry, so I'll just write it out, angle 2 congruent to angle 4 alternate interior. And so in geometry, when 2 things are congruent, I'm going to set them equal to each other. And so 5x minus 16 equals 24. Simple 2-step equation. We're going to add 16 to both sides. 5x equals 40. Divide both sides by 5. 40 divided by 5, x is equal to 8. Okay. Now I want to do the same thing for y. I want to figure out if there's a relationship between for y, so I can solve for y. So I'm going to trace that side, I'm going to trace that side, and then I'm going to connect the transversal. Now that one is really, really easy to see, even though we traced the red over or the pink over the green. But that's pretty easy to see. You can see the Z there. That's pretty clear. And so what I learned from this is I learned that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. By alternate interior angles. So angle 1 congruent to angle 3 because they are alternate interior. And I know in geometry when 2 things are congruent, I'm going to set them equal to each other. So 6y plus 5 equals 95. Simple two-step equation. I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. 6y is equal to 90. I'm going to divide both sides by 6. And 90 divided by 6 is 15. And so the value of y is 15. Now, just to kind of give you a heads up here, when you're working with parallelograms, you are either going to be looking for alternate interior angles or you're going to be looking for same side interior angles. And so let's look. This is actually apparently example 1. So apparently we did these out of order for some reason. This time I'm just given the information and I have to figure out what the relationship is. And so the first thing that I would do is let's trace the line. So there's a z, and so I know that this angle is the same as this angle, and so I get 3x equals 11z. Well, I can't solve that because I have two variables. So I'm going to trace the next set of lines. So I'm going to trace that. I'm going to trace that. So there's a z. It's a backward z, but it's still a z. And so what I learned from that is I learned that 18, the angle that's 18 is congruent to the angle that's 2y. And so this I can actually solve. 2y equals 18, divide both sides by 2, y equals 9. Okay. So now I need to look for some other kind of relationship here. And one of the things that jumps out to me is if I trace, this may be kind of hard for you to see, but if I trace this angle, and that whole angle, by the way, this whole angle would be 3x plus 18. It's the two angles combined. And I trace this angle, the angle that's 63. Well, what I see there is I see the letter C, and so I know that those are same side interior, and I know that same side interior angles are supplementary. So these would be same side interior, and we know they're supplementary, and so we're going to say that 3x plus 18 plus 63 is equal to 180. All right, apples to apples, pairs to pairs, so I need to group 18 and 63 together before I do anything. And so 63, so that's going to give me 81. So when I combine this, I'm going to get 81. So 3x plus 81 is equal to 180. Now it's a simple two-step equation. Subtract 81 from both sides. 81's cancel. Bring down 3x. 3x equals 99. Divide both sides by 3. And what I learned here, I learned that the value of x is 33. So now I know x is 33. I know y is 9. And so the only thing left to find is z. And so now I can find z because now I know that x is 33. And so if I do 3 times 33 equals 11z, 3 times 33 is 99 equals 11z. Divide both sides by 11, and as it turns out, 9 is equal to z. And so y and z actually happen to be the same thing here. Okay, now that's not the only way to do this problem, but that's kind of how I see this problem. To find x, you would have had to do the same side interior. And then you might just plug in to the 3x and say, well, that angle's 99. It's alternate interior with 11z, so 11z is 99. I mean, you're going to get the same answers. So again, the key thing for you to recognize here is the type of angle pairs that we're looking at. So 3x was alternate interior with 11z, 2y was alternate interior with 18, and 3x plus 18 and 63, those were same side interior angles. So your angle pairs are, when we're looking at parallelograms, our angle pairs are either going to be alternate interior or they're going to be same side interior. Okay. Make sure you put a star by this problem. You're going to have a problem very, very similar to this on your test. Your picture's almost going to look exactly the same. The only difference is it'll be maybe flipped upside down, I think. But angle 3 is 8x plus 3. Angle 4 is 20y minus 3. And angle 7 is 11x minus 12. And so the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and write that down. So 8x plus 3, 20y minus 3, and then 7 is 11x minus 12. And so probably some of you have looked at this right away and you said, well, 3 and 4 are a linear pair, and you're right about that. Okay, and so 8x plus 3 plus 20y minus 3 is equal to 180 because they're linear. And so this is angle 3 and this is angle 4. So angle 3 plus angle 4 equals 180 because it's a linear pair. So now I need to think apples to apples, pairs to pairs. And so 8x, I can't group that with anything. 8x, so that's going to be 8x plus 20y. But then plus 3 minus 3, well, that's just 0. Those two actually cancel. Plus 3 minus 3 is 0. And so when I simplify this, I'm going to get 8x plus 20y equals 180. Okay. Now the problem is I can't solve that yet. I can't solve a single equation that has two different variables. All right. If I had another equation that had x and y, I could do a system of equations and solve it for x and y. But to be honest with you, that would be just a little bit too much work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at angle 3. So here's angle 3. And then I'm going to look at angle 7. And here's angle 7. And so when you look at angle 3 and you look at angle C, or excuse me, when you look at angle 3 and you look at angle 7, you should see the Z. Okay? And so that means that they're alternate interior. And so that means that angle 3 is congruent to angle 4 because they're alternate interior. And I know that alternate interior angles, excuse me, that's angle 7. Angle 3 is congruent to angle 7, sorry. But regardless, I know that they're congruent, and I know in geometry when two things are congruent, I'm going to set them equal to each other. And so I'm going to say 8x plus 3 equals 11x minus 12. So this time, for this equation, I want to get my variables on the same side. So I'm going to subtract 8x from both sides. I'm going to bring down 3 equals 3x minus 12. I'm going to add 12 to both sides. 12's cancel. And so I get 15 equals 3x. Divide both sides by 3. And 15 divided by 3 is 12. And so x is equal to 12. So now that I know what x is, now I can solve this equation because I'm going to replace x with 12, and so I'm going to get something that looks like this. 8 times 12, because x is 12, plus 20y equals 180. And so 12 times 8 is 96. So 96 plus 20y equals 180. We're going to get a decimal for y. That's okay. So we subtract 96 from both sides. And so 20y is equal to 84. And we divide both sides by 20. And so y is equal to 84 divided by 20. And so I believe, check me in your calculator, that should be 4.2. Yep. So the value of y is going to be 4.2. Okay. And again, if you notice here, all we did was we looked for those relationships. We looked for alternate interior, same side interior, alternate exterior, as the case may be. But today we primarily looked at alternate interior and same side interior because that's what most of these problems are going to are going to kind of point you towards, especially these parallelograms and then the picture like this. Okay. Now you have the rest of the period to work on your assignment. If you didn't finish last night's assignment, you can work on that as well. So you should have time today to kind of get all of your assignments caught up if you owe anything. And I will see you guys tomorrow.